Welcome to Sasquatch and Sourdough, the podcast where we embark on a journey into the depths of the unknown, weaving together threads of ancient scripture, tales of high strangeness, and the joys of nature. Whether you're a seeker of truth, a lover of the great outdoors, or simply hungry for a good story, Sasquatch and Sourdough invites you to join us on a journey of discovery, wonder, and deliciousness. So grab your backpack, sharpen your senses, and prepare to explore the sacred mysteries of our highly strange world like never before.
Well, welcome back to Sasquatch and Sourdough. I am your host, Christina, and this is my beautiful best friend, Crystal.
Hi.
And you are you. Welcome.
Welcome.
Welcome. It's the beginning of fall-ish in Maryland. Maryland has some really interesting weather, and there's actually like a chart circulating that you can look up, like what season. Have you seen that?
No.
It's like the 12 seasons of Maryland chart. So according to that, we're like in fake fall.
Oh, yeah. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. So we're in fake fall in Maryland. It feels like the leaves are changing. It feels like it should be 70 degrees permanently, but it's not. It doesn't stay that way. It fluctuates.
We still have our humidity.
Yeah, we still have the humidity.
Mm-hmm. And it's like every other day. Today it's humid. Today it's good.
Yeah.
It goes back and forth.
It doesn't make for fun hiking.
No.
But the pumpkins are out.
Yay.
Yay. So I got some fantasy pumpkins from the little market down the street.
Oh, that's nice.
I love them.
I started buying mums.
Yeah, I bought them too.
Yeah, they're really pretty.
I always forget that you can plant them.
Yeah, so I've planted them. Sometimes they come back, sometimes they don't.
Sometimes they can grow.
It's just completely random.
Well, there was something else that we planted. Oh, holy basil's like that.
Oh, okay.
Like if you plant it in the ground, sometimes it'll come back and sometimes it won't.
Yeah, it's really weird. So I have two in like pots.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I like mums.
Yeah, they look pretty in the fall.
I also, when I bought my fantasy pumpkin, it reminded me that I totally forgot to plant pumpkins in June. I think you're supposed to in June.
Yeah. So we do this thing where we put pumpkins in our yard for Halloween displays.
Mm-hmm.
And then they rot. And the seeds go into the ground and the pumpkin fertilizes it. And then we just get like pumpkins. Yeah. We don't really plan it, but we know it's going to happen. So then we just look out for like the pumpkin vines every year. And we're like, we're going to get a pumpkin.
We had that happen one year, and I think it had to have been like squirrel or bird, and it happened in our wall.
Oh.
Like we have a really pretty stone wall in our front, like the front of our house, and it was just like this magical pumpkin.
Oh.
We were like, what is this? So plant your pumpkins, and I'll have to remind everybody myself in June.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a whole process. But it's fun because then you have a pumpkin patch.
It's really cool to have your own pumpkin patch.
The most sincere
pumpkin patch.
Oh, spooky movies. Oh, spooky movie season. So,
there's so many.
I have a weird question for you, Crystal.
Okay.
What is your spooky movie? Like, what's the beginning of the season for you? Where did you go to right now?
Oh, boy. There's so many I can pick from. So, I can tell you what we've actually done this year, and I guess it changes year by year. But this year, I watched Monster Squad with all of my children. So that's a movie from the 80s that I'm very fond of.
That's a cute movie.
Yeah, and it actually hasn't aged very well. There's a lot of like 1980s humor that just would not fly these days. You could not make that movie today.
That's the best.
There's so much stuff in it that's not PC and considered. You know what I mean? It's just considered bad these days.
I thought you meant with like technology that the kids would be like, what's that phone?
No. The humor is very crude, and there's some choice language that is not used anymore these days. I won't go any further into that.
It's funny.
But anyway, it's a really great movie, and I love the mummy scene in particular. Aww. So the little boy, I don't know if anyone's seen it, but I'll tell you. The little boy comes to his dad, and he's like, Dad, there's a monster in my closet. And the dad's like, okay, come on. And he goes in the boy's room, and he like opens up the door, and he's looking at the little boy, and he's like, ooh, scary monsters, go away, scary monsters. Mm-hmm. But he doesn't see that behind him in the closet, there actually is a mummy in the closet. But the dad doesn't look. And it's like, it's a funny moment. So he like slams the door without looking, and he's like, I'm going back to bed. So then he goes back to bed, and the little boy like puts his hands over his eyes, and the mommy like slowly walks across the room and then goes out the window, and you can see like the little trail of bandages like behind him out the window.
Oh,
it sounds horrifying, but it's like
cute.
It's funny.
Yeah,
it's hysterical.
It's like they're cute little. Oh,
yeah.
It's all night terror again. So I'm kind of like, it's all like sort of like cyclical, I guess, with me with the seasons. Like, I feel like I watch the same stuff at the same time, like every year.
Yeah.
So like right now, I'm kind of like, I mean, I'll watch The Burbs whenever.
I usually watch that in the summer.
Yeah, for some reason, it's weird.
Yeah.
I watch it in the summer, and then I'm like, oh, okay, it's been a month. I should probably, like, Rob's always like, we watch this like this month. And I'm like, but it's The Burbs.
It's my comfort movie.
It's the best movie. Oh, Corey Feldman.
Yeah. I get it. I totally get it.
It's the best movie ever. Oh, there's so many. I'm just like, now I'm just playing it in my head. Like the dog.
So what's really funny to me is I'll tell people, oh, have you ever seen The Burbs? Nobody has any idea what I'm talking about. And then I told you, and you were like, yeah, that's like the best movie ever.
Watch it every week.
That's why we're best friends.
That's why we're best friends. So different yet so alike.
Yeah.
But I think this is what kind of got me thinking about this question, is like the one that I feel like it's always about like the woods for me, I guess. Like when I spend more time in the woods, I'm like, oh yeah. What's like, I want a woodsy movie. Dude, The Watcher in the Woods.
Oh yes.
I can't.
That's really good.
I just love that movie.
There's an interesting fact about that one is Disney has cut ties with that movie.
That's why it's not on Disney Plus.
It's not on Disney Plus because they consider it like too scary and too like, I don't know, with the whole alien thing and everything.
Dude, Disney's got some nerve. Yeah. Like,
they totally cut ties with it.
Are you afraid that like they discovered your portal secret? Like, give me a break. Yeah. I've seen some conspiracy theories. Come on, there's so many conspiracy theories with Disney and the weirdness. How dare they?
That's why you have to watch it on YouTube.
And I love Betty Davis.
Betty Davis.
Karen.
Karen.
So the funny thing about that movie is I remember watching it way back in like the, I don't know, 80s, 90s. And the first time I saw it was at my cousin. I had a very rich cousin, and she had Disney, like the Disney Channel.
Yeah.
Not Disney Plus. The Disney Channel, and you paid extra for that with your cable. And that was like, you were rich and fancy.
You were fancy.
You were not middle class fancy. You were like straight up rich. Fancy. And she actually lived in like Severna Park, so they were like totally rich.
No.
But I remember like we were at some function, and they must have just put on the Disney Channel, and then it was on, and I was like mesmerized by this. I was like, what is going on here? There's like there's mirrors, and the girl's blindfolded in like white dress. I mean, it's just such a cool.
It's very atmospheric.
It's so atmospheric. And like Betty Davis and Peter Ritchie. But so the funny thing is, I forgot about it, and then I like remembered it, and I was like, oh great, that's really cool.
Yeah. And
I'm like Googling it, like describing the whole thing. And thank God, I never thought I'd say this for Reddit, because it was just like, oh yeah, that's Watcher in the Woods.
Yeah.
Cool class. Yeah. Highly recommend.
That's a great one.
Yeah.
It's hard. You got to find it on YouTube.
Yeah. So cancel Disney Plus and then go. So yeah, I know it's spooky season. So last week we talked about Goatman. And that was a fun episode. And that actually kind of like, I was surprised at the reactions from that. So it was kind of cool because we naturally led into like the next episode, which is Dogman.
There's so many different stories about like phantom and dogs and like
in like the shadowy graveyard.
Yeah, what do they call them? Like the Grims.
The Grims,
yeah, in the cemeteries, and
that's a whole other like side trail too, because that is, and like it's almost like it's not a like Death Eater, but it's like a fear eater. Like it's supposed to either be, some of them protect and some of them just are there to scare you so they can like feed off of it.
Yeah.
It's crazy. So yeah, did you want to get into the Dwayyo?
Yes. So I found this really cool information when I was looking up Dogman, and I discovered that the name, the Dwayyo, comes from Pennsylvania Dutch.
Mm-hmm.
So where we live in Maryland, we're very close to Lancaster and Pennsylvania Dutch communities. So a lot of the Dogman sightings that are seen here in Maryland are usually connected to sightings in Pennsylvania. It's probably like the same creature that people are seeing.
Yeah.
We're very close. And there are a lot of Pennsylvania Dutch actually that live here in Maryland, like up towards the northern part of our state, like where the line is. But anyway, according to legend, the Dwayyo is a vicious creature dating back to the early settlement of the Middletown Valley. The origin of the Dwayyo is thought to have come from Pennsylvania Dutch. Stories circulated of a wolf-like creature similar to the Dwayyo known as the Hexen Wolf.
Oh, Hexen.
Yeah, I love that name. So the Hexen Wolf is German folklore, and that was here before the Dwayyo was introduced.
Mm-hmm.
So people were used to hearing about the Hexen Wolf because of all the German immigrants that lived here. And I guess the two creatures the legends kind of morphed together and formed like what we know in modern day as Dogman.
As Dogman.
Yeah. So there's a bunch of sightings that come from this area, and one of the sightings was back in 1944 in West Middletown. So it was said that the earliest reports of the Dwayyo come from the settlement of the Middletown Valley, which is in Frederick County, Maryland. Witnesses have heard it making frightful screams, and alleged footprints were left behind. In 1965, a man under the alias of John Becker described his encounter with the Dwayyo to local papers.
I did read this.
Yeah.
This is really interesting.
He gave a detailed description of the creature. He went on to allege that the creature came towards him and stood on its hind legs and attacked him. He then fought the creature off until it ran into the woods. Becker described it as big as a bear, had long black hair, a bushy tail, and growled like a wolf or a dog.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then after that encounter, more serious stories followed in newspapers. In the summer of '66, the Dwayyo was sighted by a man, and they referred to as Jim A, on the outskirts of Gambrel State Park. He encountered it while heading for a campsite. When he approached it, it made a horrible scream and backed away from him. He described it as dark brown, shaggy, two-legged animal, about the size of a deer. It had an odd walk, with its legs stuck out on the side of its body, making its movements appear more spider-like.
Ew.
So then it just goes on and on of all these like different encounters that happened, in that area. And all of this can be found when you search like the legend of the Dwayyo. It's called Legends of America is the website that I got this from.
Mm-hmm.
And there's like a really cool like little picture, little sketch of what it's supposed to look like.
I know, I couldn't find like the origin of that. There's a lot going on in that valley.
Mm-hmm. There is.
Because that's where the Snallygaster.
Oh, and that was the other thing.
They're mortal enemies.
Yeah, the Dwayyo is reported to be the mortal enemy of the Snallygaster.
What's going on?
We did a fun little episode on the Snallygaster a while back.
Yeah, we did an episode on the Snallygaster.
So that it is the same area, Frederick.
Yeah. Blue Ridge Mountain, the Maryland Blue Ridge Mountains.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, what's going on in that valley, man?
I don't know.
Yeah, frightful screams, footprints. It's in Frederick. Mm.
Yeah, and that Gambrel State Park is also in Frederick. It's all in the general same area.
John Becker. So that's what I picked up. I thought that was interesting. It's not even, it's like an alias. It's not a real name.
Yeah, alias John Becker.
So when we get back to like the Pennsylvania sort of tie-in, I actually really highly recommend this book called Beyond the Seventh Gate. It's written by Timothy Renner. He actually heads up the Strange Familiars podcast, so shout out to them. They do great research, great work. I actually messaged him on Instagram and asked him if he had I could see the tie-in because this book is about Toad Road, Seven Gates of Hell, and Other Stranges in York, Lancaster, and Adams County. So he kind of sticks up to that like part of Pennsylvania.
Yes.
I really would like to get him on the show because he's got.
Yeah.
We did sort of an episode about Hex Hollow, but we kind of bored ourselves, so we never actually like published it. So he wrote like this whole book about it. But so anyway, he directed me to the Dwayyo.
Okay.
So we're definitely like on the right track. But he does have it's interesting because he then in his writing in chapter 15, he says when the Germans immigrated to Pennsylvania, it seems they brought with them the werewolves of European legend. So there's kind of this like European werewolf tie-in too.
Yes.
That's really kind of fascinating. And so he says, there are in fact so many werewolf tales in Pennsylvania that we have a term for the ghost of a werewolf, the spook wolf.
Oh, wow.
So we're going to have to do a werewolf tie-in because this is just like, there's so many dogs. Spook wolf.
That's cool.
I know. Spook wolf.
I love the descriptions of what these people are seeing. So it's a tall creature standing on its hind leg, and it's hairy, but it looks like a cross between either a wolf or a dog. And I guess the man part comes from that it stands on its back leg.
And then there's also variations of like which way the legs are facing. Which is really creepy.
The last guy said it looked spider-like because the legs were on the sides of its body instead of situated like forwards, like a normal dog.
Yeah.
Ooh.
I know. So this, what is this? This one says, this is, in the fall of 1976, another sighting of the Dwayyo occurred in Frederick County near Thurmont. When two men were driving off of Route 77 onto a private road, they saw a large creature run across the road in front of their car. They described it as follows. At least 6 feet tall, but inclined forward since it was moving quickly. Its head was fairly large and similar to the profile of a wolf. I've heard that before too. The body was covered in brown or brindle-colored fur, but the lower half had a striped pattern of noticeable darker and lighter banding. The forelegs were slimmer and held out in the front as it moved. The back legs were very muscled and thick, similar to perhaps a kangaroo. This was not a humanoid type creature. It did not have the characteristics of an ape. It was much more similar to a wolf or a ferocious dog. However, it was definitely moving upright and appeared to be adapted for that type of mobility. I was particularly impressed by the size and strength of the back legs, the stripes on the lower half of the body, and the canine wolf-like head. So that, I mean, I don't know. That's definitely more werewolf almost.
That's definitely werewolf,
right? That's. I mean, I get the picture in my head of like classic werewolf, like wearing jeans and ripped shirt, and a muscle guard because it was the 70s. The 70s again.
Yeah, it is the 70s again.
What are you guys doing?
So there's the next one is 1978. Two park rangers were in Cunningham Falls.
Oh, that's pretty there.
When they encountered a large hairy creature running on 2 legs.
Yeah, and then here's another like. Oh yeah, gets back into the Hexen Wolf. So it's definitely. I mean, you really don't get far into looking into the Dwayyo without running right into like werewolf lore.
It does. It comes from, I think that Hexen Wolf is the German version of a werewolf. And that's what they brought here.
Yeah.
So when they see whatever creature it is that inhabits this area, I mean, I guess they automatically assume that's the Hexen Wolf. Who knows what it is? Could be the same in both areas of the world. Who knows?
Yeah.
I mean, so this thing is seen everywhere. Have you ever heard of the Beast of Bray Road?
Oh, yes.
That's another one. That's the same. It's described the same way.
That's a very, very interesting encounter. Definitely, guys out there, check that out because
there's a really great movie on Amazon by Seth Breedlove. I really enjoy his movies.
Yeah,
shout out Seth Breedlove.
It's a really, really well researched, thought out. Great interviews.
He has great interviews with all the people that live around there.
Because that was something I can't remember, I might be misremembering, but it was kind of tied to the family, wasn't it?
I don't know. I don't
yeah.
remember that much.
Yeah, I don't remember. Okay.
I just remember that the beast itself is very similar to what we're talking about with the Dogman.
Yeah, the description. Yeah. I don't know. There's a lot of that. Okay, so now I tried to get on our little Facebook group in our neighborhood, and nobody was biting with the Dogman stories. So I didn't get any like actual local.
Don't we have local lore about a beast or like an animal or something in the cemetery?
Oh, are you talking? I'm sorry, you're talking about Saberwolf.
Saberwolf, that's it.
Oh, yeah. If you guys don't know about Saberwolf, when we went to high school, people would always talk about that. And it's actually where we go and hike. Because we hike in a place.
It's all connected.
It's like all connected.
Little park connected to something.
Yeah. So, yeah, that was definitely. We grew up with those stories of like Saberwolf. But however, I think it was just kids being.
Of course. Yeah.
Kids.
But it was fun.
It was really fun. I mean, I had like some, one guy I know said that he was like chased through the entire, and this is a very rocky park. It's a lot of imbricated rock going up and down the stream. And then there's like a low trail and a high trail. But you can definitely get lost if you get in within the woods. If you get off the trail. Right there.
So before I knew it very well, I thought I knew it well. And I went back there with my kids and I got turned around. I didn't really know where I was. But now I've been back there so many times. Like I know it like the back of my hand now.
Because we're used to it, yeah. When I was a little girl, my brother and I, because we wanted to like jump on the rocks and, that's just part of like childhood fun.
Yeah.
So we, with my Nana, poor Nana, we scared the crap out of her. Like we went down into the the river and started hopping the rocks and we were gone.
You just kept going.
For like hours. Like she almost called the police.
Oh.
And then in our mind, we're just like, la 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 la, like having the best day ever. Best core memory. And then we find her again and she's like flipping out.
Oh. Yeah, that park is fun because it's right smack in the middle of Baltimore County where there shouldn't be that big of a swath.
So there shouldn't be a park there.
Yeah. But it's protected and it's been there forever. And so there's a lot of like history and lore that go with that part.
Yeah, but this kid swore that he and I don't know where it came. And obviously, if you do a search, Saberwolf, and it's funny because I did put something out on Parkville, and somebody said Saberwolf.
Really?
And I was like, and it's somebody we know, so I was just like, oh.
I wonder if that's just our generation.
I think made up. I think somebody made it up. It's what it feels like. That's one of those classic like. A senior telling the new group of kids, like, don't go into the woods. Like, Saberwolf
will get you.
Although, there's definitely, like, I could see that tie-in of, it's next to a cemetery.
The Grim.
So, I didn't even look into the Grim.
I only know the Grim mostly because of Harry Potter. But when I started doing a lot of research into Dogman, the Grim came up a couple of times. Yeah. And that's more of an English folk.
It is.
Yeah.
At least from what I looked at. Yeah. And I know it from obviously the Hound of the Baskerville.
Yeah.
The best.
Yeah. And they protect the cemeteries, correct?
Yeah, so actually, you know what? The Leaf Hole, they did a really good covering of the Grim. They've done I think a deep dive, but if I remember correctly, it is kind of it's actually kind of because I listened to their Dogman episode and it's kind of sad because it's like almost like this spirit is protecting the graveyard so that it's like there's reverence and that people aren't like screwing around and defiling it or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a good spirit.
Yeah.
But then they go into the history of how I don't know, there were some kind of dogs they kind of buried a dog alive. It was one of those things to create the I don't know.
Yeah, they would purposely bury a dog on the property that would become the cemetery's grim.
Right.
Yeah.
So that to me, I don't know, sometimes that it's so funny because you get into these really neat, like, parallel kind of gray areas of, like, superstition, like actual real,
Yeah.
we should have something. I'm sure something is spiritually protecting the graveyard, but then it's like superstition and like sort of weirdness that
Yeah.
like makes it, oh, people just take it upon themselves to create this spirit, which is a little, I don't know, let's not bury dogs.
Oh, that's horrible.
No. Come on, guys. Come on, whatever, probably 12th century. Oh, yeah. But yeah, they did a really good story on that. But so, yeah, I could see that. Like, there's always that image of, well, dogs and like not so much hellhounds, but like haunted dog apparitions protecting
Yeah.
and then disappearing.
There's a lot of good stories from truckers too that see black dog apparitions on long drives.
Oh yeah.
It's kind of prevalent in the trucker community where they'll see these they'll see these phantom dogs, and then they'll like CB radio one of their buddies down the road and be like, be on the lookout, phantom dog, and it's like a running joke.
Yeah.
Because they realize that it is supernatural to some extent. It could also just be a dog. Mm-hmm. So like they don't and they can't like just stop every time they see something freaky on the side of the road.
No, they're driving a big rig.
They have a
schedule.
They have a time constraint.
Yeah, so who knows with our whole like little legend of the ghost dog. We're kind of making up the ghost dog of Saberwolf, but you found an actual like recorded story.
Yes.
Okay, I want to hear this encounter.
Okay, so this I'm entitling the Dogman in Essex. So this comes from Cryptids Canada podcast, episode 197. Dogman jumped over my car.
What?
From April 19th, 2021. Okay, so witnesses were traveling in Baltimore, Maryland suburb of Essex at night when a very large cryptid canine suddenly exited the woods and easily leaped over the hood of their moving vehicle.
What?
In 1981. The witness, anonymous, then 24, was living in Baltimore, Maryland in the community known as northeastern suburban community of Essex.
Essex.
It was between 1 and 2 a.m. and they were driving their Dodge Charger on a ramp leaving 702. This is Route 702, which then took them west onto Eastern Avenue, where there was a small section of woods on the right side of the ramp. On the back side of those woods, there was and still is a shopping center. I was about 30 yards down the ramp when this creature burst out of the tree line on my right. The witness recalled, thinking it was a dog and fearing they would run it over, the witness slammed on their brakes. As it was skidding, the creature was in a dead run forward, jumped and went over the hood and cleared it by at least a foot. It landed on the shoulder on their left and disappeared into the tall grass. As it was sailing over my hood, I was looking at the whole left side of it, and I thought it was coming through the windshield. This thing was huge. It looked as long as my car was wide. It was a real dark black. The witness noticed tufts of hair sticking up from the tops of each of its ears, and it was smiling.
What?
Yeah. It says I saw a whole lot of teeth and a really long fang.
Ew.
Yeah. I didn't notice if it had hands or paws, but I could see what its back legs were like, and I couldn't take my eyes off of its face and that smile. It was haunting.
It smiled at him.
He said he felt like he was looking at pure evil. And the witness noted that it wasn't a regular dog. In the years following the sighting, he had seen pictures of the Dogman cryptid, and it matches exactly what he saw.
What? With
the very muscular hind legs bent, like in the way a dog's legs are bent if you were to stand it up.
Right.
Oh,
guys, there are werewolves in Essex.
Werewolves in Essex.
What?
And it's funny because I know this area so well. Like, you take 702.
I know exactly where that is.
Towards Eastern Avenue. Like, you're going to go to Pizza John's or the thrift store.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Wait, hold on. We need to go back in time because we've got classic werewolf Dodge Charger.
Dodge
No
Charger.
way.
So this incident happened in 1981, but nobody reported it until like 2021.
Because there's nowhere to report stuff. Where
Yeah.
was that reported?
This is from Cryptids Canada podcast. That's the source material.
Cryptids Canada.
It was very hard to find this.
Dude.
This was like way hidden.
All right, look, guys. We're here. We're here for you. You don't have to go to Canada. You don't have to talk to Canada.
I know. I thought it was funny.
You can come right here. We will hear your stories. Oh, man. So when you said Cryptid Canada, I was like, and then Essex, I was like, is she talking about like Essex? Like, that's just somebody from Essex.
Yeah,
That's amazing.
Route 702 to
Yeah,
Eastern
702.
Avenue. Like, I had to read it to make sure, because I was like, why is this coming from Canada?
No. Oh, that's crazy.
And it even says the episode 197. So
Okay.
that's something you can look
All
into.
right. Well, maybe I'll link that in the show notes. Interesting.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Look at first. You know what's really funny? My friend Marianne from church, I was telling her she asked for like the link to the show, and I was like telling her about some of the like episodes. I can't remember which one we were talking about, but she's like, I wonder if there's like anything weird. She lives in Dundalk, which is not far from Essex.
Yeah, they're connected.
And she's like, is there anything in Dundalk? And I was like, I don't know. You live there. Ask around. Let me know.
So Essex is it's a cool community. It's on the water, and there are a lot of forested areas, like leading to the beaches and stuff all around there. It's really interesting area.
There's always a rainbow in Essex. Maybe a werewolf.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Good. I love that. That's crazy. That surprised me.
Me too.
Good research.
I had to really find that one.
Yeah. Okay, and then you had another one, right?
Yeah, I have another one. This one is, I think, more terrifying. Okay. So this story comes from Harford County, Maryland, and this was submitted to the Reddit page r/Dogman. The author is A. Kimbo Rupp. Spelled exactly the way I said it.
Wow.
It was posted 2 years ago. Now, I don't love Reddit.
No.
It's not one of my favorites, but a lot of times when you search things, the search engine automatically pulls up stories from Reddit. And sometimes you find some really good ones.
Yeah.
So I like this one. Okay, so this man says, on October 18th, 2021, it was midday, and he took his 7 and 2.5-year-old sons to a state park that was only about 1.5 miles away from his home. This park was Rock State Park, and it's also considered the Hidden Valley area within Rock State Park. The park is small. He says 6 people would be a crowd. So it's a pretty small little area that he hiked to. It was about a half-mile trail that goes, follows a creek and ends at a beachhead that's about 20 feet long. Him and his sons are very familiar with this park. Like I said, it's only 1.5 miles from his home. So they go there often and they hike. The kids are comfortable. They were messing around, throwing rocks in the water. He bent down to puff his pant leg, and he heard a blood-curdling scream coming from his oldest son, his 7-year-old.
Oh.
So he looks up at him, and his son is screaming, falling backwards, kicking his legs, and he's just staring across the creek. So the father looks across the creek, and what he sees, perched on a large flat rock, is an animal that he could not understand. He says there was no more than 20 to 25 feet away, and its dimensions seemed so large, it looked as if it could leap the creek in one stride. A barrel chest with clear, defined pectoral muscles, shoulders, and biceps, no different than a man, just a lot larger. Bulging eyes and a stubby snout like a hyena. It looked as if it was in like a sprinter's starting position, not an animal on all fours. Its thighs and hind end were noticeably large. The mass of this animal was unnatural. The ears faced forward with hair tufts on the side and top of its head, just like the other story. The face was looking as if it was on high alert. And he compares it to like the way your dog looks at you when you have a toy and you're getting ready to throw it. And he's like, where are you going to throw the toy? Where are you going to throw the toy?
Oh my gosh.
So this creature is looking between him and his son in that like high alert manner in a starting running position. Like he's getting ready to pounce on one or the other.
Oh, I'm getting chills.
I know, right?
Ugh.
It's like a really scary story. So the father, of course, takes his kids and he starts running down the trail as fast as he can to get away from this thing. And he actually tells his 7-year-old at one point, like, you may have to take your brother and just go.
Oh my God.
Because he's considering fighting this
man.
thing to save his kids. That's like how dire the situation is. So they start running, and the 7-year-old is completely in a daze. He's running, but he's also crying, and he stops every once in a while and turns around in like a dazed, confused manner. And the dad keeps yelling at him to run, 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 stopping, keep running,
Just
stop
keep
crying. And that happened like 3 times. And he said the shock and the fear that a 7-year-old was feeling just made him so confused that it I don't know, it affected him to this day. So, but back to the story, the animal did not follow them down the trail, obviously, because he's alive to tell the story.
Yeah.
But he said the thoughts going through his head at the time were, he says, it was the only time in my life where I knew I could not protect my children.
Oh my goodness.
The buck knife on my hip was no better than a pillow. And even though there was no mistaking what I witnessed, trying to explain this to anyone is pointless. He goes on to say, I cannot understand why my mind is forcing itself to debunk what I saw. This man is obviously freaked out by what he saw.
Wow.
And is like reaching out to a community to try to like give him some kind of closure.
Wait, this is from 2020. This is
2021. Mm-hmm.
Can you, I wonder if we can find him.
Yeah. So he goes on to say, it's a small park. Wait a minute. He says, my oldest, the son that was freaking out when he was running, he says, my oldest is afraid to go out in our yard in the dark. And the little one, the youngest one was only 2 or 2.5. He has no clue. He thought the whole thing was fun. He was laughing.
Yeah.
He thought they were like chasing his brother.
Classic 2-year-old.
Mm-hmm. But his oldest doesn't even like turning towards the right out of their driveway in the direction of the park. Because he knows that's where it lived.
Yeah.
And apart from all of that, the fleeting fear, he says, apart from all of that, it's just fleeting fear and temporary jump scares for him. So he's like dealing with it.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. There's a lot of people that like actually reply to this man's story.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like a pretty good community on Reddit, actually. And they all reply to him. And there's like a certain woman that reaches out and says, like, please make sure you have your child like psychologically evaluated to make sure that he doesn't have like PTSD. And
right.
Yeah, it's like a big thing.
And so I guess we have to kind of like put that in sort of the same category of like, I mean, like if you were chased by a bear or, you know, if you had one of those sort of like really wild outdoor encounters that you could easily become just like freaked out and traumatized. Yeah. Especially a small child.
Freaking. It was terrifying.
That poor dad.
I thought that was such a terrifying story when I read it.
Can you imagine that? No. I mean, also, I like, good job for being a strong man that's going to turn around and be like, go take your brother and run.
Yeah. He was getting ready to fight the thing.
I'm going to fight this werewolf.
Yeah. Like, and he was
this is what it's come down to.
Scooped up his little son and ran. But if it came down to it, he would have sacrificed himself to save a baby. Yeah. That's all good parents, you know? Yeah.
I'm going to shake his hand.
So he can be found. His name, I said it in the beginning, it was Akimbo Rock. Akimbo Rock.
Oh, good for you, sir.
On Reddit.
On Reddit. Oh, Reddit did something good.
Yeah.
That's just so terrifying.
So when I read this story, one of the replies was telling him to go to the North American Dogman Project to report his encounter.
Yeah.
And that's a national database where people can report their encounters with Dogman.
And actually, it's funny because I reached out to, so there's a really cool guy on Instagram, so Drewski, who does the Cryptid Warfare podcast.
Okay.
I reached out to him when we were kind of setting out to do this, and asked him if he just knew any like kind of like Maryland Dogman stories, and he pointed me to North American Dogman Project too. So, again, we can't stress this enough. and I'm going to link this too, because it's so important, I think, to just kind of, we have all these big databases that like pull, people can like pull from. It's just so important to just put things on record because somebody else might have that experience. And, just kind of like to tie it back. I know it's like really lame, but like Saberwolf, I don't know if anybody else had that experience that guy had or heard about it, but if I can Google it and it can pull up, all that metadata and all that sort of, all of those algorithms out there really help, because then people can kind of put another puzzle piece to their story.
Yeah.
What if this guy couldn't, what if that wasn't there?
He's having a very hard time with it.
I mean,
said, in the very beginning, I didn't really read everything he wrote, because he goes on to say in the beginning of the story that while typing his story, he felt like it was pointless because he's tried to post this 3 different times, convincing himself that, this is dumb and nobody would believe it.
Yeah.
He just goes on. He goes pretty much in depth, like very much in depth, with how much this is really affecting him. And I guess he's trying to debunk what he has seen, but it's impossible because it happened.
Well, and it's experiential evidence.
And his sons have his older son has, this fear now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can usually tell when people are telling stories or writing out their stories, if they're using a lot of like flowery like language, it can, if it gets like a little kind of romanticized, you can tell that they're kind of spinning a yarn.
Yeah.
But this is, I got chills from that.
Yeah, me too.
Like my whole like mom, mama bear just came. I was like, oh my gosh, then what would I? And then I was like, what would I do?
I don't know what I would run just like that dude.
I mean, my son would probably be like, Mom, go. I've got this. Like, he would try to fight man. The werewolf, whatever. But if we get down to, all that, like, kind of emotionality aside, I hate to say that, but if you think about the description, that goes right back to werewolf.
Yeah.
So.
Like the hyena, like, snout.
Yeah.
It's the first time I've heard that.
And that it's heightened, I think that's a good way of thinking of it. Like, when your dog is ready to, like, engage
not on
play.
And I liked how he said it wasn't on all fours, like a normal dog stance. It was on hind legs in the moment that it, that it looks like you're getting ready to sprint, like a human is getting ready to sprint.
Right.
Yeah. Dogs don't do that.
No, dogs don't do that.
Neither do wolves.
All right, I think that was a good one.
That was a good one.
Yeah, I think that's gonna do it for our little covering of Dogman. Yeah. We didn't even get into the tie-in of I'm tired of talking about like bridges and Crybaby Bridge and there's so many bridge connections. Like we went through that. Go listen to Goatman from last week because we went through that like I think ad nauseum. But there's still there's another tie-in.
Oh wow!
With the bridges, so like Dogman's hanging out on the bridges.
Oh.
So
well, maybe they're seeing Goatman. And they think it's Dogman.
And we didn't even get into the I don't know, the Snallygaster Dogman thing that's like they're fighting. I think that's just
hokey.
It is.
It's kind of like
hokey.
What is it?
Harry Dimensions?
No. I'm thinking about like Mothra and
Godzilla.
That's it, Godzilla. Like my brain wasn't working. King Kong. They're all fighting.
Right. Yeah, I wonder. Yeah, that's like, I don't know.
But it's funny.
It is funny.
And it's a little like Maryland lore. It's just kind of fun.
We had fun putting it in ChatGPT.
I would like to see like a good comic book strip all about the Snallygaster and the Dogman fighting each other for territory in Frederick.
For the Middletown Valley. What happened there?
Oh,
somebody shed some blood.
Yeah, well, I swear it's got to be something Native American. All this stuff just reminds me of Native American folklore.
Oh yeah.
Snallygaster reminds me of, the Thunderbird.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Right. Are we all seeing the same? Is it all the same, like, old gods entities? You know what I mean? Like, there's nothing new under the sun. So is it just like this recycled sort of spirit that
they've been here forever?
They've been here. Oh yeah.
And we're just trying to figure out.
And these forests, man. there's old stuff in the forest. So I don't know. All right.
Those are all our mountains, our Appalachian mountains.
Yeah.
Our Appalachian mountains.
Oh my god. Okay. Yeah. So now I'm going to like high places, valleys. I'm like, all right. Next week, Gypsy Curses. I went.
Yay!
I went down such a. I keep saying I keep saying bunny trail, and every time I say it, Rob's like, "It's rabbit.
It's rabbit hole."
And I'm like, but it sounds so much
Bunny
better
trail
going down a
sounds
bunny
nice.
trail.
Yeah, I understand.
You're stuck in the hole, the belief hole.
Really?
We like you guys. Hi.
Yeah, we like you a lot. We've been listening to you a lot.
I love you guys. All right. All right. Now we're dawdling down the trail. So all right.
Again.
We're just talking again. Yeah. So if you enjoy this content, again, I'm so excited about this whole just community. It's been so much fun. We've really been enjoying, getting all of these stories together. But you're missing, so we want to hear from you. You can DM us on Instagram. I'm on Instagram way too much. And you can also send us an email at sasquatchandsourdough@gmail.com. We really want to hear from you. Till next time, bye.
Bye.
Together, we'll continue to seek the truth, to unravel the mysteries that lie just beyond our grasp. So as you bid farewell to this episode, remember, you are not alone. The wilderness is alive with secrets, waiting to be discovered by those brave enough to venture forth. We want to hear your stories. Email us at sasquatchandsourdough@gmail.com. Until next time, the truth is out there, God is with you, and everyone always ends up in the kitchen.